it is that Panda again. I'm here again with another video, and today I wanted to talk about heroes for newer players to focus on, as I know that a lot of players in the start of the game don't know what they want to do or what heroes they should focus on. And I know you guys make a lot of mistakes earlier out. I've heard of some people who even focus on like Maxine or something because, oh well, her relics are easier to get and all this type of stuff. And obviously Maxine is not the type of hero that you want to be focusing on other than using her to gather with. So yeah, I do hope this video is somewhat helpful, and we're gonna hop right into it. So I'm gonna exclude most of my heroes, and I will include a hero like, Lee, Martin, Cynthia, Jaden, just heroes that you are able to obtain early game, and most of my heroes will not be mentioned. I will also go through epic heroes later, and I'm gonna start with the legendary heroes. So my first to start off with is Jaden, and I will say my thoughts on Jaden. So in general, I think that Jaden is a good early game, especially when you consider that he is obtainable through campaign, doing your memory trip, blah blah blah, and you can get 3 of these Jaden fragments a day for I think 4k points each, and of course you can just obtain those little points by doing your stuff. The only issue I have with Jaden is he falls off late game, and that's why I will say that he's one of those in-between heroes, whereas although I think that he is good earlier game and he's kind of worth an early game investment, I wouldn't really recommend investing into him over some of these other heroes. And I will also be including Tom and Raygro, by the way, since Tom and Raygro are obtainable somewhat early game. All it takes is I think like maybe 2 weeks or something before you get them in top commander and stuff. But yeah, I'd probably, obviously put my relics in, or just my XP and my stars and Tom over someone like Jaden. And although, like I said, it's easier to like level up one of his skills, I would probably just use him to a certain extent. I would maybe invest him to 4 stars or something for an early game, I guess, just beginner buff to be able to use this dude on the field and stuff. But after that point, I just don't see myself investing much into him. Another good early game one I would consider is Lee, and although I will say that at the rate that we're going, it is possible that Lee might eventually become an outcast hero late game, I still have found use for Lee, right? And obviously there are a lot of heroes that you can use now or something, and they're still good late game, like Tom or even Raygro, and I still use these heroes, but like for example, Martin, I used to use him a lot, and I used him for a good year to almost 2 years before they released heroes that would kind of replace him. At the point of the game that we're in right now, I am still using Lee, but I can see him eventually being overturned. But that being said, I still do think that he is a pretty good early game hero, not to mention the AoE factor that he has, meaning that he's able to be an excellent field hero. There's also the fact that just like Jaden, he is a leader type hero, meaning that he can lead any type of troop and be kind of good in that area, meaning that, like, for example, if I wanted to use Lee and Akemi, I could run a range squad. If I wanted to use Lee and Charlie, I could run an infantry squad. Just in general, this makes him an excellent hero, as well as, like I said, the AoE stuff, and that makes him a really good hero on the field. And as of now, he is still very vital late game, and I can still see him being very useful. Of course, like I said, possibly being eventually overturned with a new hero. Next would be Tom. So Tom is probably one of the the best early game hero that you could invest in that still goes into the late game, and I still find an extreme amount of use for him, be it on towers, as a garrison captain and such, or even, sometimes using him even on rallies and stuff, and even on the field, or even on your wall. Just in general, Tom is really excellent, and I honestly just think that Tom is still an amazing hero, and I think that he is just a really good investment. I think that Raygro is kind of in the same boat. Of course, compared to Tom, he falls off in many regards. So if you are to, obviously invest between the two, do invest in a Tom, and Raygro being his, just the second choice that you would invest in. But Raygro is still pretty good, and I still find him very useful late game as a tank hero. Obviously, I don't really use him otherwise besides tanking, or even maybe taking on a swarm, since he is good with counter damage. But still, Raygro, pretty good early game hero if you were to ask me, out of the legendaries. So my favorite 3, I would say early game, would be Lee, Raygro, and Tom. That order probably going Tom, Lee, and Raygro, but Jaden being up next there. Also didn't mention Catherine and Cynthia. My big issue is if you're not a whale or not a big spender, Catherine is not someone you're really going to invest in. And if you aren't planning to spend money on Catherine and you only unlock her or something, right, and you only like get her first skill up, I don't see her being very worth it, because you can obviously not invest universal relics compared to some other heroes. Like for example, Elena right here, I can exchange my universal relics into her and actually up her like that, but I can't with Catherine, where I have to spend if I want to get her up, and I just don't find that being very worth it, especially as someone like me who's not a big whale or big spender. But if you are a big spender, she is very good, and I still think that she's okay late game. I don't find her being as viable, obviously, but early game she's a monster class hero and just has so much use, and that makes Cynthia good. And I think that if you are not going to invest in a Catherine, I probably would hold off on investing into Cynthia. Although Cynthia is okay by herself without Catherine, she doesn't even have the most appealing field, tree, because she has a field battle tree, and that is not really my favorite talent build. As well as just overall, she just falls off without Catherine, if you ask me, and I just can't see myself leading with her unless I don't have much of a better option. So there are obviously better choices. Martin is one of those heroes where I would say, okay, I wouldn't invest relics into him, right? I wouldn't invest my universal relics into him. Only get him to 4 stars maximum if you are going to level him up, and that is just to unlock his skills, because if you guys don't know, support heroes' talents do not matter, so leveling him up will not matter, and I would only use him as a support to one of my tanks. Otherwise, Martin is not very worth it. I honestly like Martin. I've heard like mixed things about him. I think that Martin is still pretty solid, but I would only let myself get like relics for him through the police station. Otherwise, he is not worth that. And that is about it to the legendary heroes. I mean, you could consider Jin, but obviously Jin early game is just a beast, right? That's all I'm going to say. He's a beast early game, really good siege hero. And I mean, only a whale is really going to have him early game, to be for real. Next, I will say that my favorite epic heroes will be in this order. Charlie, where the heck is Akemi? Okay, Charlie, Akemi, and I would say Alex, honestly, before Freya. I don't know what it is. I'm okay. I think Freya's still good, but I think that Alex over Freya for me. But Charlie, Akemi, Alex, and Freya, those are going to be my 4 main ones. One, I want to mention that these guys all have AoE type skills, meaning that they're dealing damage to multiple targets in a fan-shaped area. So just that in general is really appealing. There's also just other things like Charlie being really good at rage recovery. Overall, these heroes being just very good, and I prefer them on the field, if anything, and as a person who fights more in the field, and I think that if you're not spending a lot, you're probably going to be putting up a lot more on the field, or even just garrisoning a lot. So these are good heroes to focus on. And also, if you guys are wondering why I say Alex is good for the single factor that he is a buffer hero, so do make sure that you're not kind of taking on the majority of the damage using Alex, but maybe pairing him with a tank so he lasts long, and then you have him buffing other squads in the area. But overall, these are going to be my main heroes. I think that, CO is okay as a range hero. Obviously not as good as like Akemi or something on the field. Park, I actually think that Park is a pretty good rider hero as well. If it wasn't for Freya's AoE, Park might honestly outdo her in any case, but the AoE is just always too much for me. It's always too OP. I think that Edward is just balls to the walls. I don't really care for Edward. I think that he's okay, depending on how you use him, but I just don't see myself really investing if like I'm kind of limited on early game options. Liam, definitely better than Edward in my opinion. I think that's about it. I would say that I would definitely go for Charlie and Akemi early game, and Akemi is more of an option for me early game if I was to choose one, because obviously you're very limited on ranged heroes, so I feel like if you're not using, because obviously you can't get Lewis and Maya right off the bat, because these guys you can only unlock around 90 days, and these are the first ranged heroes that you're going to get. So Akemi is your best option, and I think like maybe pairing her with Lee just for the single fact of, okay, if I need a ranged squad, Lee's a leader type hero, and it just means that he can be flexible. So like Lee and like Akemi, this just seems very appealing to me, and she just makes it possible to kind of run a range squad kind of efficiently early game. But I don't know, maybe I'm just being crazy. But yeah, I think that's about it to the video though. I just wanted to give my thoughts on some of the better heroes. I mean, Charlie, like I said, really good rage builder. I could run him with like Lee, I could run him with Tom, I could run him with Regro, I could run him with any of those heroes and feel fine. I could even run him with Jaden because Jaden has a like much slower rage buildup than these other heroes. So I honestly think that with Jaden, it sometimes just makes sense. But yeah, I think that Charlie can be run with many of these heroes. Akemi, of course. Same with like just Lee and Jaden, but I don't know. I prefer with like Lee over Jaden or something. There's like Freya. Obviously the same case, though. I mean, you also have rider options already. But yeah, I think that's about it. I'm just blabbing at this point. I do hope you guys enjoyed though, and I hope I kind of gave you guys something to think about. And yeah, that is about it to the video. I do appreciate you guys as always for watching though, and that is about it. You guys have a good day or night, and peace.